Good morning, boys and girls. Along the lines of the introductory book series that I've been talking about, I had forgotten completely about this book, I Am That. This is a very interesting book. And at the time it came out, it was barely even recognized, but then it got more and more and more recognized. And it's a very useful and inspiring book for many people. Although, okay, so it's the author, in a manner of speaking, is Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, a very interesting Indian guy who is interesting for a number of reasons. One is he was a very inspiring teacher. He had a very not atypical, but he had a unusual temperament for a teaching mystic. He was not at all placid. He was actually kind of rowdy. He sold cigarettes in a little town that he never left. He had a little store downstairs where he sold bindis, and he lived upstairs. And then students from all over the world would come to listen to him teach in his living room. And they had to use a translator, most of them. At any rate, one of his students transcribed this book, which is full of really, really pithy distillations of his teaching. And like many mystics, he didn't write books, like Socrates or whatever. So I thought I'd share just a few. I took quite a few notes when I read this. Jack Kornfield turned me on to it. This is what the guy looks like. You may have seen him around. Jack Kornfield turned me on to this. And just a few notes from my notes here. Without memory and expectation, there can be no time. He says somewhere else, and I think this is very true, earnestness is the only condition of success. Earnestness. That's very, very, very true. And by earnest, he means determined, zealous, sincere, serious, and eager. These are the requirements for success. And let's see. He says that mind creates the abyss, the heart crosses it. Also very true. It says, if you want peace, deserve it. Nice. A man willing to die for truth will get it. If you want to sin, sin wholeheartedly and openly. Nothing blocks so effectively as compromise. This is kind of cool. You must be extreme to reach the supreme. And he says, the will is the deed. And then on the front of the book, it says, the real does not die, the unreal never lived. Imagine a big building collapsing. Some rooms are in ruins, some intact. But can you speak of the space as ruined or intact? It is only the structure that suffered and the people who happen to live in it. Nothing happened to the space itself. Similarly, nothing happens to life when form breaks down and names are wiped out. So the guy is, I could recommend this wholeheartedly, actually, to especially people who are just getting started and want to get pointed in the right direction. It could be energizing. I had forgotten about it completely. It can be quite energizing and quite inspiring. So Nisargadatta, I Am That. Now, subsequently, other students wrote other books of his teachings, but this is the one that really, I think is the one to go to first. All right? So that's it for the introductory book for this session. Okay, here we go.
Can I ask a question on one of those?
Sure. I was going to ask what have you learned, but go ahead. Let's go.
It said something like nothing blocks as much as compromise.
Yes.
What does that mean? How does compromise block?
When you compromise with yourself, you say, well, I want truth, but I also want to oh boy, this has to come up in your own life, and it's hard to pull examples, but you compromise your heart, you compromise your sincerity, you compromise your dedication, you compromise yourself. You aren't wholehearted about it.
I see.
Truth respects only the man or the woman whose whole heart is in this. Right now, you can gain a lot just by learning the the paramitas or the Buddha's virtues in terms of living a good life: patience, generosity, discipline, effort, insight, contemplation, and energy. Right. Those are very, very valuable, and the same thing with the Christian virtues or the Mohammedan virtues, for that matter. Those are good guides for life. But if you want truth, if you want to awaken, then sooner or later you're going to be tested, and you have to have your whole heart into it. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's fascinating, and what bars most people is they can't quite pull together the wholehearted sincerity, the drive, the earnestness, the single-mindedness. And again, this is where the sutra comes in, because it shows you how to drive all efforts into one effort. Before I woke up, I was treating everybody. I was a physician, so I was in some clinic, rural clinic, and I was treating all my patients as if they were Jesus. And during the breaks, I'd do a mantra. I mean, you have to be sincere. You have to really want truth, or you won't get it. And there are details, but I think he put it well. Without sincerity, you're going nowhere. Or as a Buddhist would put it, dedication of intent, or dedication of your life, which is really nothing.
I've noticed something with that respect with myself. There's like different versions of myself throughout the day.
Very good.
Some of them have perfect intent, and some of them don't. And
very good. Excellent.
And it seems almost like completely disjoint. Like, I can be fully focused and single-minded at some point during the day, and then the next morning I'll wake up and I'll be asleep.
Hence the value of a ritual in the morning where you set your day with the sutra, and maybe, I don't know what else anybody might do. I'm just offering a potential solution that has worked for many, many people. But it can be your own ritual, whatever. So you know what you're about. You just start wandering around like a scatterbrained, monkey mind, wandering around, banging off whatever happens to be there. Now, whatever happens to be there could be completely random, but your interpretation of it and how you see it is different. So if you're in learning mode, whatever happens, you will learn from, or you'll learn about your own mind's reaction to it, which is where the action is. And then you can discard the mind altogether. And like it says here, where the building collapses, but the space is pristine. And so all that we invest in our lives, that's basically to kind of keep us out of major avoidable suffering, right? But that's a different aim.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you'll know when you get older and you're closer to death that this life, I keep using this analogy, but it's just an analogy, is like a dream. And when you wake up from it, you see that the human life is just a very, very paltry, it barely even exists as a reality. And what he said here is that it doesn't exist. That which is real does not change and does not move, as Parmenides said. That which is behind the apparent, which is always changing, as Heraclitus said, does not move. It moves, but it does not move. It's not in time. And so that's there for everybody. It's everybody's birthright. It's everybody's nature, right? So when the Buddhists say you are Buddha, That's what they mean. So it's right there for anybody, but they have to be willing to use their heart to set their mind aside. Because ultimately this thing's driven by love.
Mm.
So, good. Well, if you've recognized the multiplicity of mind, your job then is to the extent it's possible, unify it. And then it's much easier to remember as you go through your day and you go through your years and your decades and your, the periods of your life. You will have this either in the back of your mind or the front of your mind, and it acts as like a lighthouse.
Mm-hmm. And so the process of unifying it, is that just as much as you can, whenever you can, being present and
well, that's one way to do it. If you stick to the here and now only,
mm-hmm.
you won't miss anything real, and you will be much more peaceful, and you'll be much more sober in your life, and you'll stay out of all kinds of weird byways of the mind that create suffering for you and others if you just stay here now.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of the time it like sneaks up on you, like I'm paying attention to the now, and then somehow it sneaks up on me and I'm suddenly lost in a
right. So you bring yourself back. Now okay, I'm an old man, and the way that I think works, that I've seen work best and I've heard described works best, even by the ancients, 200 years before, Plato, is resting on the breath. The breath you always have with you, and the breath is always in the present. So if you could return to the breath, you could return to the now. And all the action is in the now, the eternal now. And there's some Latin name for this too. I've forgotten it. Maybe somebody can put it in the notes, in the comments or something. By the way, folks, thanks for the comments. Keep them coming. It helps me structure these talks a bit. Okay. That's good that you've learned that there's not one self. That was Robert Ornstein's big shtick. Okay, other questions? Or stick on the same topic. By the way, you could, folks, I forgot this. There are little snippets, this is kind of before iPhone, certainly, and about the time of the video cameras when they were just coming out. So there are some tapes of Nisargadatta on YouTube. He's yelling and screaming and jumping all around. He's really great. Very different than what you'd think from a guy of this level of realization. Because we have this model in our mind, kind of Rupert Spira kind of character. This is like, so got this beautiful temperament, very, very calm and placid and so on and so forth. But not all were like that. That just fits our stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time when if you wanted to, if you wore a black jacket and a white collar, then people assumed you were holy. That'll get you into trouble, right? So our conditioned mind has certain things that we expect. Like Idris Shah, people could not. Some people were turned off immediately because he smoked cigarettes, right? And his response to them was, if you're going to be turned off by something as superficial as that, because all of the Muslim guys were smoking, their pipes and that's part of the culture back then. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be turned off by something as superficial as that, then you don't have any hope anyway, right? So nothing lost.
You told me a story once about the Tibetan eating a lamb shank or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so in the early days, I was hanging out with Chagdud Tulku. May he rest in peace. And he's a very, very highly evolved Tibetan Lama. And we do these beautiful, what were they called? They were called empowerments. These long, drawn out like ritual, and he'd read in Sanskrit, in Tibetan, and then there'd be translations, and there'd be a lecture that was also translated. It was all very, very high and elevated. And it was very, very inspiring and beautiful, although quite, you know, exotic, because it's, you know, it's got a lot of bon in it, B-O-N. You can look that up if you're interested. But one day, for some reason I'm not sure of, I went behind the curtain to where his apartment was, or where he was staying, or whatever, and he had his feet up on a footstool of some sort, and he was watching a football game, and he had a langshank in his right hand with a knife in it, and he was just cutting off pieces of lamb and eating them like that, quite you know, skillfully. But I was shocked by all of that. But it just goes to show you can't judge by superficials. This is the whole container and content critical thing to understand, and not just in the examples that I've given, but in everything. Differentiate the container from the content, or you'll miss the content because you've judged the container in this example. Mm-hmm. So I was shocked, but I had a lot to learn.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a good example. That was funny. I mean, I had to laugh at myself. Well, you know, they get married and have lives.
Right.
All right. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah. So I read like one of the Phaedo books recently.
Oh, which one?
The one on Socrates' death.
Phaedo, good.
And it's a little difficult to read just because of the, like.
It is.
It's still great, but
and that's unfortunate because it's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. There's some interesting parts in it.
His death, his murder, too. His judicial murder.
Yeah, he's put in prison and he has to drink a poison.
Well, he has a choice between that and exile, I think.
Yeah.
There are things worse than death. There are things worse than death.
Mm-hmm. So the context is, the whole context is it's the day that he's going to drink the poison, and he's got Plato's there with the other students of his, and they meet with him and they have conversations for the last time, and mostly around death, and they're wondering why he chose to take the poison rather than go into exile, and why he's not afraid and he's in good humor.
He's going home.
So there's a few different discussions. One of them is like an argument about how, like, he is a soul, not a body, and the soul cannot die.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, is the idea or the concept of a soul useful?
Yeah, you have to tell me. But it is a human universal, I believe. It's interesting. Well, we cannot comprehend. We can't come close to comprehending the enormousness of the reality. Mm-hmm. Right? So, and if you imagine a sea of go ahead.
Because one of the arguments is like, well, and separately from this, but just from doing like thought experiments, is that like it becomes evident that you're not your body, because you can imagine yourself without a body or in a different body, and so you're evidently not what you think of yourself is not your body, and you're not tied to your body necessarily.
Well, you are tied to your body for a while, but so let me just bring up something I read, a quote that I read recently, which is, it would not be possible for us to seek the soul or to seek truth or God or whatever if that was not part of us. We couldn't seek it within us if it was not part of us. I think it's the way it goes. Right? So just as an aside. But okay, go ahead.
And so like the next logic of that is like, okay, then we're some sort of soul and we have a body, right? That's the usual line of thinking, something like that.
Okay, I don't know about the possessive, but go ahead.
Or we're, as you said, we're tied to a body for a time. Like
It appears that way, yeah. Like we're attached, we're fixed to a body for a while. At least to the sensory organs and to the mind and the circumstances. Yeah, it seems that way.
But then that brings up the question of reincarnation, because
does it?
Well, if what is a soul without a body, and
see, reincarnation. The problem with reincarnation in my book is that it requires time. And so I think it's much more, if you're going to use Occam's razor, it's, I mean, how would we have birth and then death and sequentially, which reincarnation implies, without time? So we could have the illusion of that, but it's well within the power of I'll just say God, to live all lives simultaneously, every life that's ever been lived. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to talk simultaneously or not simultaneously. Everything that's ever existed, everything that's ever lived, every conscious sentient creature, all at once. It's the power. This is, again, I keep going back to the sutra, but the scale of the sutra helps prepare you for the possibility, that possibility. But the problem with reincarnation, and the Dalai Lama has been, he's not as, now that he has to run a whole culture. I mean, he's a secular head, not just a religious head. And so he can't be casual about it, but it's not as simple as people would like it to make it out to be. And it creates all kinds of problems for the individual, because as we've learned from history, oftentimes people say, I'll do it next lifetime, or I'll be kind of good, and then maybe I'll get born as, a rich person next time, or whatever. But setting all that aside, I don't understand. If you can describe reincarnation in the absence of time and space, which is reality, then we can talk about it. Otherwise, it's very hard to talk about. I mean, you can have it, but it's not going to be as you conceive it. As far as I can tell. But go ahead.
So there's in my mind, there's two possibilities. One is that there's only a single soul, and it's the same essence that's experiencing everybody, everything.
I think we could agree on that, because there can't be a division in reality.
But there could be something else where there are souls that are more connected, or lives that are more connected. From this perspective, it looks like time, but it could be through some other mechanisms where there's previous lives from our perspective, it's in the past, but
we can imagine and speculate all we want, and we can even some people do truly believe in past lives, like David Hawkins. There's a whole school in the Eastern Seaboard that are really into that kind of stuff, but it's speculation, and I try and stay away from that. Now, you don't want to why speculate? We've got plenty right here. So some people do believe in reincarnation, but they believe in it. They don't know. And if there were such a thing, and there may be, it has to take place in the context of outside of time.
And the other thing I want to say is, even saying that all lives are happening all at the same time is still bringing time into it.
Correct.
So it's like we
very
can't even,
good, excellent, very good.
Able to talk about things.
Very good, very good, very good. You're absolutely correct. It's by means of trying to communicate.
Right, but you can point to the idea that there's something outside of time, but we can't conceive it.
You can experience it, and that's the whole point. Is before you die, experience that. I am that. which is a misnomer too. Any words you put on it are going to be wrong, right? I am, that's wrong because it has an I in it. And it has a that in it.
I mean, all language can't.
Language is limited and limiting.
But it can help direct you, right?
In the beginning, it can be in the beginning, but it's very painful towards the end when you struggle because you want to try and communicate, but you know that everything you say is wrong. Every word you use is off. Every word. Every word, every phrase, every title, every name, all of them are off. It's well beyond any concept or idea or thought. But we approximate it because, what else are we going to do? If you ever hear me speculating, I want to know about it. I don't speculate on this channel. I hope. No, I'm not a speculation guy. I'm not a guy, but okay. All right, see, there we go. Okay.
On that Plato book, another thing so he says, he brings up this idea that desires and fears or aversions, they make you cling to they bring you closer to the body, or they adhere you to the body.
Okay. First of all, it's not Plato, remember, this is Socrates, the enlightened teacher. Yeah. Okay. Socrates, and that really upset me when I was 50 years old and I realized, holy God, Socrates was an illuminate, right? They never taught me that in philosophy. Not that I had any philosophy, but whatever I had was bad stuff. I mean, just poor stuff because they didn't even realize that. So what was the question, or what was the deal?
So this idea that desires and fears link you to the body.
Any coarse impulse, even not just desires, anything that has to do with the ego or desire or thought or hope or fear or all these things they're too coarse. The impulses are subtle. They're nuanced. They're refined. They're so subtle that thought is grotesque. Thought just seems like a grotesque next to these impulses from the outside. So, yes, Socrates is right. Anything like that is going to block it. Hence the refinement of the ego and the you want to water down your drives.
But as you just said, it's not just the body, it's also thought.
It's the mind too.
Yeah.
You must be extreme to reach the supreme. I sometimes this guy's kind of cool. Yeah, you gotta, and then you gotta have to be patient too, because you never know when it's gonna come. It's like death; you never know when. You have to just be ready. It's the best way to live life. Alert, aware, conscious. But not self-conscious. Can you raise your head just a touch? You're sliding down the thing. There we go. A little bit more. A little bit more. There we go.
There's this idea that I've encountered, I think in the Sufi books, I don't know if it was Rumi or someone else, but how there's like this gradual, if people are in, let's say, oblivion, then there's a gradual like stirring to get people's energies up. And if people are too distracted, then there's a gradual stopping to slow people down and get them relaxed.
That's what Rumi invented the Sufi dancing for in Ionia, because everybody was lolling around in the heat or whatever. Nobody had any energy. And so he energized them, right? By the dancing and stuff. But then he got them to calm down, right? And observe the effects of the colors. So the dancers weren't the more advanced students; they were the beginning students, I presume. But and the students then were able to discern the effect of the different colors and the movement on their the movement of their finest emotions. It's part of being a scientist of the mind, right? Which the Sufis are superb. Just like the Buddhists. Well, they're all the same people. They just evolve. It's the evolution of the same impulse as the Avatamsaka became, and then also Christianity, quite frankly, in its pure form. I mean, it's in its primordial form. Before the church got a hold of it.
I've noticed in myself there's a certain momentum to, if I'm practicing more,
yes,
I'm sitting, take more of my breath, there's a momentum that grows. And
the rich get richer. He who has will be given more, and he who has not, even that will be taken from him. You recognize that quote? You recognize that quote? That's Jesus.
Is it from the Bible?
Yeah. I was reading I was rereading Ecclesiastes, and I love that book, but man, they go whack. Man, they go pretty crazy in there. In the Old Testament.
What do you mean?
No, we don't have to get into details, but they get pretty whacked out.
Okay.
Yeah. They lose the north, and they're not always, it's not the Illuminates writing that book, not necessarily that are writing those books, and like King David and Solomon and those guys, they were real human beings living in a real time, dealing with real problems, and they got pretty whacked out. God bless them.
So I wanted to ask, there's also like the Zen technique of stopping and seeing, and
yes.
you've kind of alluded to this, of also just being able to stop and cut through things and see directly, and directly go turn the light around. And so is that just an advanced technique that eventually you are able to just cut through things directly, or is it different?
Well, okay, so with Zen, after digesting and having years and years of this sutra, the Zendo started getting set up, and they institutionalized it, and then people started, doing things by rote, or just thinking that the words were the purpose, or you just have to master you just have to memorize what the master said, or something inane like that. So what the Zenists did was they stripped it of everything. They stripped everything and just said, now you just have bare consciousness. Either stop and look, or whatever, all the different techniques, or they just sat there and stared at a wall. Anything to get people from. They were starting to treat the scripture as holy itself, and not as instrumental, and that's a big mistake.
Right.
It's like people memorizing the Quran and then going out and doing bad things, but they'd memorize the Quran, right? But see, it's not in the memorization; it's in the interiorization of a sutra like this. But see, this is much more than morality. It's cognitive capacity. Cultivated. And so we can safely resuscitate it in the 21st century, because we don't have any danger of people being, taking anybody's words as holy writ. So now we can use it again. It's like many of the Sufi teaching tales. Some of them get vitiated. They can't be used because they've been bastardized by this general society, right? So you have to be sensitive to know which Sufi stories you can use, and which ones you can't anymore.
What are examples of some that have been bastardized?
No, I knew you were going to ask me that. Let me think. See, what comes to mind, because I don't know those, because I didn't grow up in that epoch, but what comes to mind is a story like, say, for example, who is the woman who lives in a shoe and has a gingerbread man or whatever? That may have had other kinds of meaning. I don't think it did. That's a German. Yeah, the Crow doesn't think so either. That could have been a German, just folktale or whatever, but it could have had interior meaning at one time. I don't think it did. But the ones from the Middle East, I'm too ignorant. I don't know them. I'm sure something will come to mind after we get off, I'm sure, but right at the moment, nothing's coming to mind. Let me think.
Okay.
Nothing comes to mind at the moment. I mean, I really have to disengage and go, rack my brains.
Okay. But
It could
the
be that the
question
tortoise and the hare, or some of these animal stories at one time had some kind of mystical implications, but now they're such commonplaces you can't use them.
the what?
There's animal stories that may have had mystical implications. This is what the crows may have had mystical elements, but that we can't use them anymore because now they're used to illustrate other points.
Like what?
Well, like the
What kind of
tortoise and the
animals?
hare, for example, although I don't think that it could have been. Who knows? The tortoise and the hare.
Oh yeah.
And there's Sufi stories of a what is it, a goat with a rooster on top of it, and then on top of the rooster there's another animal, and they all go around like and do things. It's just going to bastardize the whole thing. So we best not go down that alley.
Sure.
Read the stories though. Read the Sufi stories. That would be fantastic if folks did that. Idris Shah, Octagon Press, Tales of the Dervishes is a good start.
But is this idea of like momentum being used to slow down?
Absolutely.
Is it something that eventually you can shorten?
Yeah, it's like anything else. Once you know how, it's like warming up to play guitar could take 20 minutes. But once you're truly expert, it doesn't take 20 minutes. You could do it if you needed to. You could do it right on the spot.
Yep.
Right. It's probably not a great example, but yeah, no. It's you get better and better at it, and then now we get to the Zen, stopping and seeing, or not just Zen. That's also the Toltec. What do you say? Stop the world.
Stop the world.
Yeah, and so for a young man of a certain ilk, I could kind of recommend partially the Carlos Castaneda series on that's basically the teachings of Don Juan, but you got to skip the first book and then read the next one after that, and then there's a series of books, but they're very energizing for young men. I don't particularly recommend them for women or for although there could be some women that get into it now that I think about it. So for young men and women that are interested in that and the more shamanistic approaches.
Taking the guitar analogy, I noticed. I mean, I play guitar, and I noticed there's times when I can play guitar and I can, get fully into it, and that's always what I aim for. But there's times where I just can't, no matter how long I play for. And it seems, the same thing with meditation. There's times when I can get fully into it, and that.
Do you remember the Sufi adage on that?
It's not coming up.
There are times when some things can be done. There are times when nothing can be done, and there are times when everything can be done. Now that doesn't apply to mysticism and mystic momentum. That applies to life. So just keep that in mind.
And sometimes it's like, for whatever reason, it's just harder, and it's like lifting weights. I'm just power through it, and it's practice.
Every time you do that, you become stronger, though. You see, you're more capable.
But then other times it's because like maybe there's something that needs my attention outside.
You're studying classical guitar, and you've been instructed to practice every day, and some days you just do not want to practice. You do it anyway, and you learn something thereby.
But there's also
and oftentimes on the other side of that resistance is like smooth sailing. And I know that's true in mysticism also. So you don't know. You just got to keep plugging at it.
But
And then it gets easier and
it's a
easier,
little
right?
more
Nothing is
complicated.
difficult once you're used to it.
So sometimes there's like times it's really hard, and it's actually I don't have to power through it. I actually have to go buy new strings or something. Like there's something that needs.
Whatever you need to do. Light
Yeah.
some incense. Go buy a Buddha poster.
Mm.
I was kind of joking, but okay. It didn't go over very well. That's okay. Okay, practice questions. Or questions from the text. Or let's read some Avatamsaka, one of the three.
Well, I wanted to, before we do that, I wanted to bring up, we had talked about, there's a couple times now that you had talked about holograms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw that video. That was good. So that's it.
Well, so I wanted to clarify something because this video came up on my feed the other day and I watched it, and it had a really good explanation of holograms. And
the original holograms, right, from the 70s.
Mm-hmm. And so what it is, it's, I mean, you had said something like every piece contains the whole thing, which it's almost that, but it's not quite.
Yeah, no, it's still in 2 dimensions.
Well, it's like every.
No, it's
every
not.
piece
It's not an incarnation of the net of Indra. No, it's not. You're right. But it's in that direction. Is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But go ahead, tell folks what it is. You take a laser, you split it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you project a 3D scene that's like actually there, and you
No,
take
you
a
don't
laser
project it. It's there. There's a 3D scene.
No, you project light. You project light
Laser light
onto it.
all in the same frequency.
Laser.
That's what laser is. All the same frequency. Okay, go.
You project 2 different streams of it, and without going into too much detail, the phases of the 2 laser beams interact with a way to hit this filament, and in the same way that a picture is created, it changes some property of the filament. So you expose it like that, and then you can take the object away, and now once that filament is set, like a picture, there's a hologram there, and you can now you take that picture
on the piece
away.
of film, like film.
Yeah,
so
like film.
So you've taken a 3-dimensional image and reduced it to 2 dimensions. Now we just need to reduce it to another dimension. Then we have, how the thought gets generated or something like that, or represented in the brain or something like that. Do you see what I'm saying? And if you use matrices and neural nets, right? If you can reduce them to, or let's just take black holes, right? The information that's, according to Hawkins and these guys, all the information is conserved. And the amount of information on the outside of a black hole is proportional to the surface area, not the volume. The surface area, which is kind of a mind blower. But let's not get too technical, folks.
Right.
Go back to Dharma.
Although
holograms are really cool, and that we should think about them as ways of modeling all kinds of things in science, and I think we will in the future. Because as we get into machine learning and hardcore stuff, via virtual realities, etc. But let's not get technical.
Just to wrap that up, the point is that this photograph gets exposed in such a way that all the information about the object that you could receive if it were there is preserved into this film. So you can take that object out and you can look at it from any direction, as long as you're looking through this like from the angle that you would look through it. There's no way of you knowing whether that object is still there or not. The light coming out. It
creates a 3D reality, literally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the things that we have on dollar bills and the things you see that are, on labels and things like that, those aren't really holograms. Those are just toys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, since we gotten all technical and all this, what do you think about the Nobel Prize in Physics, Chemistry, and what else? All going to geeks, computer geeks? What the hell is that about? That's not right.
I don't know.
We'll skip that. Okay, let's keep going.
You want to read the Arakamsaka?
Oh, yeah. Please do. Thank you for bearing with us, folks. We're going to get to some good stuff here in just a moment.
I just have the last book on me right now.
The realm of reality?
Yeah.
Entry into the realm of reality. Okay, well, which... did you hear the reading of Night Goddess? It's really nice. It's really nice. I mean, that selection and that reading and everything like that, I've gotten a lot of good feedback on it. It's very good for you just to listen to it. You could put it on a loop. If nothing else, read it, listen to it before you go to bed. Where are you going to go? Oh, detachment from the world.
I can go just right at the start of it. Entry.
Go ahead. So we're on page 1135 of the Large Sutra. It's going to be hard to read because of all these Indian words, but you can do it.
Mm-hmm. I'll try.
Book 39, Entry into the Realm of Reality. Go ahead.
Thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One was in Sravasti, in a magnificent pavilion in the garden of Anathapindada, in the Jeta Grove, together with 5,000 enlightening beings, led by Samantabhadra, the universally good enlightening being, and Manjushri. The names were endowed with perspicacious knowledge, endowed with essential knowledge, endowed with unattached knowledge, endowed with blossoming knowledge, endowed with sun-like knowledge, endowed with moon-like knowledge, endowed with undefiled knowledge, endowed with adamantine knowledge, endowed with unemotional knowledge, endowed with radiant knowledge, star-like, mountain-like, jewel-like, unattached, flower-like, undefiled, sun-like, resplendent, dispassionate, radiant, jewel energy, great energy, knowledge thunderbolt energy, undefiled energy, energy of the sun of truth, virtue mountain energy, energy of the light of knowledge, universal glorious energy, universal light energy, earth matrix, sky matrix, lotus calyx, jewel matrix, sun matrix, matrix of virtues, matrix of the ocean of truths, matrix of radiance, matrix of origination, matrix of lotus splendor, good eye, pure eye, undefiled eye, unobstructed eye, all-seeing eye, perceptive eye, observant eye, lotus eye, adamantine eye, jewel eye, space eye, universal eye, celestial crown, crown of jewels, which give birth to all Buddhas, crown beyond all worlds, all illumining crown, invincible crown, crown of jewels illuminating all things in the cosmos, crown of the essence of enlightenment, radiant crown, crown of jewel inset with the aligned thrones of all Buddhas, crown illuminating the space of the whole cosmos, crest of Lord Brahma, crest of the Lord of Dragons, crest of lights emanated by all Buddhas, crest of the essence of enlightenment, crest of most excellent jewels of the sound of the ocean of all vows, crest of a spew of jewels emanating the halos of all Buddhas, crest adorned with jewels showing the non-differentiation of all surfaces of space, crest covered with a net of the finest jewels representing the lights magically produced by all Buddhas, crest of sound of the wheel of teaching of all Buddhas, crest uttering the names of everything in past, present, and future, great light, undefiled light, light of undefiled energy, jewel light, dispassionate light, star light, light of truth, light of peace, sunlight, magical light, celestial light, torch of virtue, torch of knowledge, torch of truth, torch of super knowledge, torch of light, flower torch, torch of enlightenment, torch of Brahma, torch of universal illumination, jewel torch, Brahma sound, ocean sound, earth roaring sound, voice of a world leader, sound of mountains colliding, voice pervading all universes, sound emitted by the ocean of all universes, sound of crushing all armies of demons, sound emitted by all didactic devices of great compassion, sound of stopping the sufferings of all worlds and giving comfort, born of truth, born of excellence, born of knowledge, born of a polar mountain of virtue, born of radiance of virtues, born of splendor, born of universal illumination, born of great kindness, born of store of knowledge, born of the family of Buddhas, glowing splendor, preeminent splendor, exalted splendor, radiant splendor, splendor of truth, splendor of the moon, splendor of the sky, jewel splendor, splendor of brilliance, splendor of knowledge, mountain lord, lord of truth, lord of the world, Lord Brahma, Lord of the masses, Lord of gods, Lord of peace, immutable Lord, mighty Lord, eminent Lord, supremely tranquil voice, unobstructed voice, voice of earth, voice of the ocean, voice of thunder, voice of the light of truth, voice of space, voice of the roots of goodness of all beings, voice of encouragement of all past vows, jewel awareness, knowing awareness, space-like awareness, unattached awareness, undefiled awareness, purified awareness, awareness of all times, powerful awareness, all-observing awareness, awareness of ways to the reality realm.
Beginning with these, there were 5,000 great enlightening beings. So they're naming the Bodhisattvas, which is enlightening beings. I would just explain it to the audience. And so these are just some of the names of the Bodhisattvas. Do you have thoughts on this passage you just read?
I don't know if I have any thoughts.
Okay, that's fine. So what they're doing is they're setting the scale and also softening the mind and also giving you the general direction in which we're heading. You know, universal truths and net jewels that are reflecting all surfaces and so on and so forth. The voice of the ocean, the voice of thunder, the voice of light of truth, the voice of space. Sometimes it reminds me of forgive me, of Melville when he's describing the ocean in Moby Dick. But at any rate, so it's a grandiose scripture. It's a psychoactive scripture. Right now, what they're doing is just setting the stage for Sudhana's journey into the realm of reality. But he's surrounded by all these bodhisattvas, all these angels, right? And humans and all kinds of different things that are there to support him and to help him. And they're there for all of us. You just have to evoke them. And see, this is some of the power of the mind. And we've neglected the power of our own minds to create realities that are more hospitable for humans and other creatures. So good. All right, thank you for that.
Are bodhisattvas the same, like equivalent to angels?
Well, so the Dalai Lama is a bodhisattva. Eckhart Tolle is a bodhisattva. Rupert Spira is a bodhisattva. Clary was a bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas, Buddhas, angels, whatever you want to, and then there are also mythical beings, and then and in addition to that, those are the ones that you evoke that by their very just uttering the name. I mean, this is something that you have to do yourself. Realize the power of your mind to create these literally cosmos is full of helpers in your journey into the realm of reality. And the realm of reality is not what you expect. That much I can say. So it's fluid for a reason. Right? Now there will be some mention of creatures, not imaginary creatures, but mythical creatures from ancient lore, like yakshas and so on and so forth. But those are just, they're like, you just consider them like decoration in a way. After all, it is called the Flower Ornament Sutra. These are just ornaments to our journey. Okay, sir. Anything else before we stop? Practice questions? Difficulties in turning the light around or anything like that? Go ahead. Keep going.
Well, the main difficulty I've had is just distractions with work, and I have family in town as well, so
that'll do it. It's a season. Well, there you can watch for regression of your mind. Right?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you more about that actually.
Okay, go ahead. I mean, I'm sure everybody
Just
could.
what um, you said. You said being with family always causes
I didn't say
regression.
always, often,
Okay.
and not
Still.
not the whole mind, just the different parts of the mind.
Mm.
I mean, for example,
It's
your appetite for what you would want to eat when your mother's around. As an
right.
example, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
mean it in any kind of adamant way. I'm just saying it's something to observe.
Mm. Well, I mean, do you have any advice for dealing with that?
Yeah, study it, watch it, be interested, be curious. It's another aspect. It's another way to. It's like walking into the lab from another door and looking at things from another direction. Yeah, absolutely. Everything is like that.
Mm.
So yeah, become a student of your own mind and the master to the extent you can. But here you can not just watch thoughts, you can watch moods and affects and expectation, all kinds of
Mhm.
stuff. It's rich material is what I'm saying.
What I've noticed, like, at least for me personally, I'm not very extroverted,
I'm sorry.
and so I'm not very extroverted, and so when I have like these sorts of social obligations, I find it very like it consumes a lot of energy. I feel a little energy depleted after if I have too many social obligations.
Fair enough. Moderate them. Try doing that with your
Mm.
family though. No, I'm saying,
Yeah.
come on, it's just part of life. It's good. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a psychiatrist too long, I guess. Okay, sir, anything else before we stop?
Yeah. No, that's all.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
Vaya con Dios. Hasta luego. Have fun. Keep at it.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.